Hi everybody, it's Ed from Edline Sports Vision and Flint Optometry in Wolverhampton, and I'm here at Millride Shooting Ground again, and this time we're shooting some different content with Adam Gutteridge.
Hi.
And Adam is a trap shooter and last won the English Open ABT in 2021, and I'm also joined by Joff from Toby.
Hi.
And today we're looking at some really interesting new technology that somebody emailed me about maybe sort of 4 or 5, 6 months ago and said, have you seen these glasses? And I hadn't. And I had a little look online and they look really, really good. So with my consultations, I'm really interested in making sure that my clients can see to their potential to make sure that their sports performance can be optimized. So with shooting, we know if you see better, you shoot better. We want people to be seeing clearly, crisply and sharply, but we also need them to be able to be aware of how to control their eyes in space and where to put them for the best outcome. And this could be where the Toby Pro 3 glasses comes into their own. So, Joff, tell me a little bit about yourself and what the glasses can do.
Cool. So, hi, I'm Joff. I've worked for Toby for 3 years now. So, Toby are a Swedish company. We were founded in 2001, primarily as assistive technology for people with disabilities to control computers. Since then, things have snowballed, and we touch a huge variety of different industries, everything from shopper study, market research, user experience, right through to shooting, but also a whole manner of industrial settings, and yeah, we work across a number of sports, everything from motor racing to golf to shooting, and as you quite rightly say, so much of what we do in performance sports is heavily dependent on where you're looking, how you control your vision and what information you take in, but equally what information you fail to take in and what you miss can be detrimental. So the Toby Pro Glasses 3 give you a perfect opportunity to see through the eyes of the user. So it's you get to see authentic, unfiltered, direct images of what people are looking at. Frankly, as you'll know, most people's vision happens automatically and you're not always aware of what you're looking at. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
And that's really interesting, because we know from a sporting perspective, before we get into the stand, we want to establish where do we see the target first, where do we see it clearly, and where do we want to kill it. And once we've established those points, we need to decide where we're going to orientate ourselves in the stand, where we're going to put our gun, and crucially, where are we going to put our eyes. And we know that when we look at elite level sports people, they have an elongated quiet eye duration. And we're going to do a different video on quiet eye in another episode. But essentially what quiet eye tells us is the amount of time somebody spends with their visual system locked on the target before, during and after the execution of the move. And we know that elite level shooters and novice shooters should theoretically have slightly different visual behaviour. And we know that with technology like the shot cam, that now enables the shooter to see where they've missed and to see where the shot has ended up relative to where the target is. But what I'm interested in seeing with these glasses is whether there's a difference, and a measurable difference, in how somebody who's good uses their eyes versus somebody who's not so good. So it'll be really interesting to capture some data today, shooting some DTL targets, maybe some skeet, and depending on the light, because we've got a really, really sunny day today, whether we can do some sporting stuff as well. So Adam, from your perspective, when you're shooting trap, what tends to be your visual routine? And does that vary from slower targets like DTL through to faster targets like OT?
Fundamentally, no. You've got a number of key base points that you need to cover off. You need to look at the light conditions where you're going to be shooting on the day, what sort of range you're going to be shooting on, what that backdrop's like, if there's any particular lens requirements to enable me to see the target quickly, crisply and clearly. Then where am I seeing that target exit point? And we've got to remember with trap shooting, it's a pursuit movement, because we don't know where that target's going from until we know a rough area where it's exiting. But because of angular difference down to the discipline you're shooting, we need to see, react, shoot. So where we position our initial visual pickup can change from layout to layout, range to range. So it'd be really interesting to see what I think I do versus what the glasses tell me we do.
So these are the Toby Pro Glasses 3. Pretty lightweight.
Yep.
Comfortable to wear, designed for just really to make the wearer as comfortable as possible, because really what you want is your wearer to almost forget they're wearing them, because you want to elicit natural responses. So how do they work? So firstly, at the front you've got a scene camera which faces forward. That records what the users are looking at. Obviously when you move your head, the camera will move with it. Within each lens, you'll notice embedded in the lens there are 8 small dots. and 2 larger dots in each lens. It's Swiss scratch-proof lenses. They're pretty durable, but that technology within it, that's 8 infrared illuminators, and what that does is that emits near-infrared light, and the 2 larger dots are cameras facing towards the eye. And what they look for is the reflection of those dots on your on the surface of the eye. Basically, use the cornea and surface topography to work out where the eye is facing, and then combines the 2 together with the image on the front of the camera to just marry together the image, the video image, which is captured through the camera, and the eye tracking data. There's a camera on there as well. Pretty straightforward, pretty lightweight. The second part of the equipment is our recording unit. I'm just going to pop this to one side there quickly. And our recording unit, quite simply, houses battery. Battery lasts up to 90 minutes. You can extend the battery life using a phone portable charging pack straight into the micro USB at the top. And it also has a little flap at the side for an SD card. So more fingers and thumbs. So the SD card houses the captures the recording. A 32 gig SD card will capture up to 12 hours of footage. So you get quite a lot onto one of those, and then the glasses themselves just connect to the recording unit via HDMI cable here. So on the recording unit, there's a little clip on the back. Clip straight onto your belt in a pocket. Yeah, and that's it. Would you like to try them on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Superb.
I think, Adam, if you want to pop them on first.
Superb, thank you very much.
I'm seeing the light whether I've turned it on. There you go.
Okay.
So from the application that we're going to use today, it's good to see that the lenses are nice and big, and with that sort of bridge on, it pushes the frame up, so that when Adam's into his gun, he should have an uninterrupted view of the target. Some of the different types of eyewear that we've looked at in the past, because they've either got a really big chunky bridge or they sit a little bit low, that then precludes us from getting good quality data because the gun and the glasses get in the way. And we know sometimes when I see clients that this is actually a cause for their eye dominance problems. It's because that the eyewear that they're using isn't necessarily suitable for the task. But that sort of sits and fits quite well. You've got plenty of vertical room in there as well. Geoff, is there any limitation on frame rate or the speed at which that this can capture the data, or is it essentially purely down to getting that corneal reflex and it's more measuring the eye movement itself?
So the glasses themselves sample at 60 frames a second, so they're 60 hertz glasses. So that's 13 milliseconds. Every 13 milliseconds, it's taking a shot of where the eye is, where it's looking. It also measures things like pupil dilation, eye openness. So you can get a steer on people's cognitive load, but also on things like fatigue and tiredness. So if you're at a long session, there's a measurable difference in people's behaviour. How the glasses work is they work via a direct Wi-Fi connection. So I'm just going to connect.
And the software can pull data out of the glasses, and then from that we can sort of look at target flight path, we can look at visual behaviour. What I'm really interested in is looking at saccadic movements, which are quick jerky movements, and the pursuit movements that Adam talked about, which are those nice controlled following movements, as well as this eye stillness, this quiet eye duration stuff. And from my perspective, as well as capturing the data, I'm also going to be interested in whether there are things that we can do to train and improve our visual behaviour once we know what the eyes are doing. And in the consulting room, we've got an eye tracker that's static by right eye. That's really useful because it helps the client sort of sit at a given distance and follow certain targets, but albeit in a 2D format. That helps me to decide whether there is a dry eye problem, whether there's an eye muscle that's too strong, an eye muscle that's too weak, or generally just a little bit of a lack of visual control. And it was in part using that helped me develop the visual training kits that we've done in partnership with Synaptic for the online work, and the physical equipment that we use as well. And that can help a shooter improve their visual stamina, but also where their eyes sit and how to control them in space. So I'm going to be really interested to see, when we've crunched some footage on here, what data we can pull out of this.
Cool. First thing we need to do, as you know, everybody's physiology is slightly different, so the interpupillary distance, the size of the eyes is different. So I just need to just calibrate the glasses for you. It's a single 1-point calibration, so I'm just going to ask you to hold that at arm's length. If I can ask you to just maybe look a little bit away from the sun. and then just hold that card up at arm's length and look at it. How's your targeting? I imagine it'd be pretty good.
Hope so.
There you go, and that's just calibrated. So you can see here on the live view there.
Yep.
If I just hit record, simple as that, we're recording.
So we're at the DTL layout and we're going to have a little look to see what data the eye tracking glasses can capture from DTL. First of all, it's worth just having a short explanation as to what DTL is. So Adam, tell us about it.
No problem. Down the Line is a domestic form of trap shooting. It's one of the most popular trap shooting games in the UK. Shot in squads of 5, your maximum point score per round is a potential for 75 points per round, because we're interested in hitting it with the first shot every single time. The trap house is set 16 yards away from the shooting positions, so I'm on station 3 here. 16 yards in front of me is a single trap with a fixed height target, oscillating 22 degrees left and right of centre. So here we are on peg 3 of the Down the Line layout. As I'm approaching the layout, I'm looking for a number of things before I even call for a target. So I'm looking at the quality of the backdrop and the quality of the light levels. It's terrifically sunny and bright today, and as we're shooting orange targets, the contrast as I see that initial target movement into the backdrop should be quite good. As we're looking out into the actual background though that I'm shooting against, there's a number of broken targets, there's some degrading targets that have been there for quite some time. So I start to build up my visual routine as I'm approaching the layout. I don't want to bring my vision too close to the trap house lid. I know that initial streak of target as it gets away from me, my eyes are going to be pursuing that, and I'm looking for a nice, clear, crisp changeover from blur to target to start my shot movement. So I'm going to move my vision out into an area somewhere above the central line of the trap house. Not too far away. I don't want to shoot this target as it's reaching its crest and starting to tail off, but I'm going to make an assumption that it's going to be somewhere in the region of 8 to 10 inches, my perception from back here on peg 3, then call for a target. So my level point here, 8 to 10 inches, is somewhere level with the top of that scaffold post that's used for setting the skeet targets. As I'm looking out in front of me now, I'm going to call pull. So now as I've looked at a couple of targets, I can see the light level is that high and the colour intensity is that good for the orange target. It's actually elongating the streak ever so slightly. So now, building into my visual setup with my physical setup with the gun, I'm going to elevate my gun hold just a couple of inches more because the light levels are remaining fairly consistent. There's no need to be chasing that streak on a nervous twitch reaction as soon as I call pull. That will mean I'll be able to make a smooth move onto breaking the target. So I'm going to elevate my eye hold a little bit more, call to see another couple of targets.
Yeah, you can see there's a very clear piece here where you're focused there, then there's a very quick acquisition of target, and then smooth pursuit as the clay goes.
So this shows that even with slightly slower target disciplines like DTL, we do need fast eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be really interesting to look at timing on a DTL target versus timing on an OT target. And maybe from the way you approach your shooting, there's a bit of visualization that goes in as well.
Yes.
And we know that with quiet eye technique, there's a lot of visualization work that goes into that from elite sports. So it was interesting that there were some different phases in that soft focus of eye position to then acquisition of the target as movement in the periphery, and then locking onto it after we've chased after that target and completing that visual tracking maneuver.
There's also some variance here. What's interesting in the angle the clay comes at, because the distance you're travelling in the acquisition when it's at the more sharper angle seems to be further for you to grasp it. I think because the eye's got less distance to travel.
As we'd expect, as it comes out within that narrow band, that 2, 3, 4 degree gap in the middle, my vision over the top of the gun, it's sat right there in front of me, so I'm very quickly aware of the blur, turning that into a solid target, then commencing to the shot manoeuvre. As it comes out on the larger angle, for me it's always about an element of control. Yes, you've got less target to see, the target comes out on a harsher angle, it's a lower profile, so it can appear to have a longer streak period, but the target doesn't change from the trap. It's got the same amount of same amount of momentum coming out from the trap machine. Your vision just has to work harder to grab hold of seeing it as a clear target, then committing to that shot manoeuvre.
Interesting.
So it'll be really interesting to see whether my visual behaviour and my visual patterns are different to Adam's, and whether there's a reduction in accuracy, and whether there's something that I can learn from looking at Adam's tracking to my own, and whether there's something I can then do to make my visual system more controlled and more tuned into fast target acquisition. So I'll look at some targets.
Yeah, love it.
So now I'm on peg 3, and I'm actually going to experiment with some slightly different visual hold points. So I'm going to try and replicate Adam's, then I'm going to try a visual hold point that's a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and see whether that affects my target acquisition, my quiet eye duration, and my ability to pick up that target as a clear, distinct image. Okay? So, pull.
It's interesting because he gets a jump. And
Yeah, it's interesting, the difference. It really is interesting.
Paul.
Yours is much more almost deliberate, whereas a bit more movement with the eye
Paul.
tracking, I think.
So what I'm interested in as well from a technical perspective is how much eye movement, how much head movement we do.
Okay.
So at the minute I'm doing sort of almost all eye movement, but when we're shooting we do a combination.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be sort of.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
What's interesting is the amount of time and the amount of determinable moves your vision is making.
yeah.
Tracking the flight of the targets.
Paul.
That was better.
Mm-hmm.
So what was really interesting there is that behind me, Adam and Joff were making observations about my tracking, which seemed to improve after the first 3, 4 or 5 targets.
It's almost as you warmed up,
Yeah.
you got more comfortable with that's where my visual hold's going to be. Call, accept, initiate movement.
So maybe initially it was a little bit erratic.
Yep.
So what we might find when we look at the camera is a shortened quiet eye duration, a bit more erratic sort of saccadic movements, whereas when we got into it, whether it was a more smooth, repeatable pickup of that target. So that is indicative of a need for me to practice and do some more visualization, some more smooth pursuit movement work, and maybe to start looking at a few targets before I start to shoot. There's a sweet spot between looking at everybody's target and getting visual fatigue, but also making sure that you're looking at some targets in order to be able to judge the line, speed, distance and trajectory. And that's something which I've learned today, which is going to be really valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to review the footage of my gaze behaviour and visual tracking on the software. And you guys made some interesting observations whilst I was actually doing the activity. So what did you notice? What was happening?
For me, the first thing that stood out is your acquisition of the target, and then the number of fixations afterwards you appeared to take. It was noticing Adam, he was very quick to acquire the target and quite smooth, whereas yours had a little bit of variance, should we say.
Certainly in the first few instances I'd agree with that, and then as Ed got more and more aware of where his visual hold needs to be, where he's going to pick that target up against the background, it got better, it got smoother. It's almost like warming a muscle up before training it.
So this potentially highlights the importance of a bit of pre-shot preparation. So having a little look at the layout, as you said, having a look at the background and then having a plan as to what you're going to do with your eyes. And I think from my perspective, it teaches me that I maybe need to do a little bit more of the visual warm-up side of stuff. So rather than going in visually cold, actually do a little bit of the eye muscle stuff that we've talked about before, and just making sure that I'm making a smooth, planned move to the target rather than it being a bit erratic. And that certainly seemed to be replicated on the footage that we've captured so far.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So now we're on the Skeet layout and we're going to look at some crossing targets. So the visual behaviour for Skeet is going to be different to DTL. Adam, tell us a little bit about Skeet.
Thanks. So we're on an English Skeet range at the minute. Skeet as a game was developed in North America in the early 1900s as a game for upland hunters to develop their quarry shooting skills. Again, terrifically dated game, fantastic for developing good visual discipline and consistency in your shooting mechanics in terms of a consistent target release from either the high house or the low house just behind us here, and around 7 shooting positions in the English or national game of Skeet, shooting combinations of a high target single, low target single, and simultaneous pairs where you have to shoot targets in a designated order. So for example, if you're shooting peg 2, you shoot a high single, a low single, and then the simultaneous pair, you have to make an attempted shot at the high bird first. That is dictated in the rules. Through combinations of singles and pairs all the way around, you can shoot up to 24 targets, and on a perfect round, if you've not missed anything, you get an optional target on station 7, which is just behind us here. If you miss a target in any of your standard, normal stands working the way around the layout, you repeat that first loss on that stand that you've just committed it on.
So it'll be interesting to see whether Adam's visual behaviour now is noticeably different to his DTL. We've got potentially a longer time to shoot the target and our eyes are going to be in a different location. Some shooters like to have their eyes into the trap. That typically suits people with better visual acuity, younger eyes, and as our eyes change, sometimes we need to have a visual hold point that's a little bit further out. And again, that can be dictated by ambient light conditions, climate, wind, all that sort of stuff. So Adam's going to shoot some targets. To start with, we're going to capture some data of his visual behaviour without the gun, just looking at some targets, and let's see what we can find out. So Adam, call for some targets.
So we're going to shoot a high house target from this position here. I know where the target exit point is, and as we're on the right hand side of the layout, just past station 4, my aim is to kill the target or break the target just over the centre stake or just afterwards. So I'm visualising my break point here, and I'm moving back to a hold point for my visual and pretty much for my gun setup, about 1/3 of the flight path out from the high house. As I'm looking here now, I'm going to call for a target, see what my visual performance is like. Pull. And one small pull. If I had the gun in the shoulder,
Yeah.
and I was making those calls and those moves, I'd be quite happy with where the gun and the eyes would be starting, that I can make a quick, clear acquisition of the target, track it, put the required forward allowance onto where I'm deciding to break the target in the right place.
Excellent. Let's look at the data.
Probably went about
So Adam, just talk us through where you're putting your eyes to begin with. Are you sort of more in the house or sort of outside?
To be properly in the house, as in trying to pick it up at that earliest point possible, you need to be very much on your game. Having not seen the target previously to walk in on the stand, I'm educating my bet. I'm going to move somewhere that I can estimate as I can see the target turning from a streak to a nice, clear, crisp target, and then control where I'm going to do my shooting, where I'm going to do the breaking of the target.
And again, what was interesting on that footage again was the smoothness, and it was the lack of oscillation, it was the lack of those jerky saccadic movements, and it was the sort of smooth pursuit that we wanted to achieve. Okay, so Joff, Adam, thanks for coming to Millride. That was really, really interesting. One of the things that I took away from that was that shooters spend a lot of time and a lot of money on lenses to see the target more clearly, but what's really important is seeing the target more efficiently, so actually being able to control how your eyes work. So rather than just passively putting a lens on in order to see it more clearly, actually learning to engage with how your visual system works.
Yep.
And what was fascinating for me as a visual professional is how erratic my visual behaviour was compared to yours. And obviously a lot of that comes from experience and practice and understanding the moves and the mechanics that make a perfect shot. But for me to then understand what activities I can actually put into my pre-shot routine to make sure that the data that these give me means that the information is accurate, so I can make a smooth movement here, because data in, data processing becomes a smooth outcome. So Adam, what did you find the most interesting thing about looking at the information?
It was tremendously sort of positive and reaffirming for me, because by looking back at the data and see what my eyes are doing, thankfully everything works as I'm expecting it to, which absolutely is a wonderful confidence boost. It highlights again, like I say, the point of lenses of an extra part. It's part of that level. Is like every part of training within shooting, it's a small percentage. As you go up the performance grade, as you want to make those jumps between classes, moves between team levels, if you're going from a national team level to an international team level, county team to an England badge, looking at your game holistically and looking for those small performance gains, it's invaluable.
So if you have any comments, please drop them in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. If you've got any questions about visual training, please feel free to email me. If you want to email Joff about some information about the Toby glasses for shooting, for other sorts of pursuits and sports, Joff, what's the best email for you?
Joff.o'connor@toby.com.
Fantastic. And stay tuned for more content, and we'll help you see better and shoot better.